The Heed the Call podcast says 4 more years of football.
Heyo, welcome to the Election Day edition of the Heed the Call podcast. I am Dan Hanzus, joined, as I always am, by the great Marc Sessler, the Cess Dog, the Gravedigger, of course, with us as well. And coming up, actually, let's bring him in right now, Conor Orr as well.
Why wait on this
very busy Tuesday show? And I was thinking about this. Is that applause for me thinking?
It's rare.
Why is the trade deadline on Election Day? What is the NFL after? These are things we could talk about now that we would not be able to talk about back then. Is there an element, Connor, of voter suppression being involved here? Some type of interference? People that are diehard fans, do they lean one way or the other? And if so, if they are tied to their laptops or other devices to see what their team does, do they miss a window to get out and step into the polling booth? You know, just throwing out, I'm red stringing it just a little bit. Your thoughts? We can't be naive and we can't be ignorant.
I would love if, like, Pennsylvania was decided because someone didn't vote because they were so excited about Preston Smith being traded for a 7th-round pick from the Packers. It's just like, oh, this is it. Our defense is complete. Like, this is, the fate of the country will have to wait.
I ain't buying it. I just think that, Mark, it's like we have to have these conversations, uncomfortable as they might be.
Well, I think that's, one of the earmarks of our show, this new show that we've created together as a group. We can have these discussions, and we are not without guilt, because we just did a robust, I thought, lively Patreon show that included all 4 of us, Justin, Connor, you and I, and we kept people from the booths. So have we inserted ourselves into the political process on some level? Just a question.
Yeah, I think I do think it has crossed my mind before that we are complicit,
right,
even if not intentionally, in so much of the NFL's overindulgence, because we're along for the ride and on the teat of the mothership in a lot of ways.
We're on it.
So yeah, the live stream being today was maybe complicating in terms of us trying to call out 345 Park Avenue, but it was a big hit, and that's the most important thing. The live stream, we had a nice turnout, Patreon exclusive, and a lot of back and forth with the viewers on the live stream, breaking down the trade deadline in real time. And now let's get into
No doubt about it.
Well, people are saying it was a huge turnout. Like, let's be real, it was pretty enormous.
Is that your Trump again?
No, that's those are facts. Like, it was an enormous turnout.
Coming up a little later today, before we get into that, we will have the big Thursday night showdown between the Bengals and Ravens in Baltimore. Also, as we hit the midpoint of the season, let's check in on the power rankings. But before that, yes, we must hit the trade deadline recap.
Do you think I'm an idiot? Do you?
We'll get to Jarrah in just a little bit, but let's start with the biggest trade that went down on this Tuesday. The Commanders, who have obviously become a really fascinating team this year with the immediate rise of Jaden Daniels. They are in the mix for not just a playoff spot in the NFC, but listen, the first seed. It's all in play. So the Commanders, they go for it at the deadline. They acquire former All-Pro cornerback Marshon Lattimore and a 2025 5th-round pick from the Saints in exchange for a 2025 3rd-round pick, 2025 4th-round pick, and a 2025 6th-round pick. How about that? The Commanders, Connor, had an extra 3rd-round pick in their back pocket when they fleeced the Eagles on that Jahan Dotson trade, and now they add Lattimore to the back end, who I'd like to know where you stand on Lattimore in the here and now. Is he the same player he was when he broke into the league in the late 2010s, and how much do you think he's going to help this defense?
Big time. I mean, they're still reeling from the Emmanuel Forbes pick from the year before, and Emmanuel Forbes was reportedly on the trade block, or at least someone that they thought that they could get rid of. But I think this trade is almost completely analogous to when Philadelphia went out and got Darius Slay from a really bad Matt Patricia Lions team. And everyone thought, this guy's over the hill. He's not really going to have anything. And he really added that critical puzzle piece down the stretch for that secondary, became a huge part of their identity, really changed kind of the specter of that defense. And I think that Lattimore has the ability to do that too. And, we mentioned this a little bit on the trade deadline show, but Dan Quinn has almost like a mind meld with some of these veteran cornerbacks, whether it was Stephon Gilmore, Trevon Diggs, or AJ Terrell. Like everywhere he's gone, the Legion of Boom guys, he's made someone better or has prolonged the career of a really good cornerback. And so I think this is a no-brainer for them.
I mean, I look at the fact that out of nowhere, Washington is 7-2 and very much alive for, like you said, a high seed or the division title. You have 2 games remaining with both the Philadelphia Eagles and Dallas Cowboys. So you've got Devonta Smith, you've got A.J. Brown, you've got CeeDee Lamb. And why do anything on the trade deadline other than to patch up a weakness? And I think this just fits. It just fits. And I love the Quinn comment from you, Connor, because he's already brought in a bunch of veterans to this defense. And while they've not been the strength of the team, they've grown together pretty quickly. They basically melded in quick order. And so I think it will work. I think the trade deadline needs to be players that work. You've got to believe in the idea that you're going to come and quickly kind of mesh yourself with what's happening. And I think this is one of those moves. And this was someone on the trade deadline on the block for a long time. And the Saints are floating away, but out of nowhere, here come the Commanders with a very nice addition.
And Lattimore, it's notable to me that a day ago, Dennis Allen was fired, and Allen was obviously a disciple of Sean Payton, and Sean Payton was obviously there for the rise of the Drew Brees era in the Super Bowl. And Lattimore was part of that great draft class in 2017 when the Saints revitalized themselves and made one more big push with Brees. So now Dennis Allen's gone. The Payton regime is finally wiped out. And now Lattimore, who was obviously a gem of that draft class, is also gone. So changes, they have come to New Orleans, and perhaps not a moment overdue. In other news, the Lions acquire Cleveland Browns edge rusher Za'Darius Smith in exchange for a 2025 fifth and a 2026 sixth-round draft picks. Detroit also gets a 2026 seventh-round pick from Cleveland in the deal. This is just the latest big name that the Browns are shipping off. Amari Cooper went, obviously, to Buffalo a couple of weeks back. And just like Mark with Washington, who sees a weakness in their defense as they are trying to make a Super Bowl run, Detroit, with the absence of Aiden Hutchinson, they had a hole there on their edge rusher department, and now Smith can very likely fill that for them in a big way.
I really love the player. I think Smith has been really good with the Cleveland Browns. It's going to change their defense, but that's not the big story here. He has 26 pressures this season. That's 17 more than the next closest active available Lions player. They've been getting pressure from their defensive tackles post Aiden Hutchinson, and this is someone that can come in and create a difference right away. And it's kind of like the Dan Quinn argument in Washington. You kind of just believe that when the Lions go and add someone to their mix, or they draft someone we didn't expect, it works, and this is going to work. I think that Za'Darius Smith was quietly a big reason that Myles Garrett was Defensive Player of the Year last year. I really do, because he created a need for attention on the other side of that defensive line. It's a big loss for the Browns, but this is the beginning of pain for the Browns, who owe a defunct quarterback $70+ million 2 years in a row. You're going to have to start to cut price and cut roster. And Smith is under contract for next year too. So this could be part of not just this season, which could be a Super Bowl season for the Lions, but the future as well.
One reason I love this too is who are two of the teams that Za'Darius Smith has the biggest problem with and is on record trashing on his way out? The Vikings and the Packers. He's going to play both of those teams again this season. And Dan Quinn loves people like that. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown walked into that Packers game with the Green Bay Sucks hoodie. Notice I said it fast to get Green Bay. But he wants that. He invites that. Za'Darius Smith hated his contract in Minnesota, complained about that, said that the Packers treated him like a 0 when he was hurt and injured. So there's something very deeply passionate about Za'Darius Smith and the rest of that division. So I love this deal.
Swinging over to the AFC, the Steelers are having a nice season so far, and there's a lot of optimism around the Russell Wilson offense. And now they add a guy that potentially matches up very well with Wilson's skill set as that moonball thrower. The Steelers acquire wide receiver Mike Williams from the Jets in exchange for a 2025 fifth-round pick. Williams, the writing's been on the wall with him and the Jets ever since New York went and got Devontae Adams a couple of weeks back. And for the Steelers, it adds a nice weapon and a nice 1-2 punch, Connor, in their wide receiver room. You got to like this trade, right?
I think so. And we watched the way that Russell Wilson played in his first start, and while there are some kind of nuances to his game that have changed, one thing is he really does like to challenge downfield, and he was throwing the ball to like Pat Freiermuth to try to do some of these back shoulder fades, some of these balls where you have to turn around and come back for them and fight for them. And I think really that was sort of a whistle to the Pittsburgh front office to say, get me a couple more guys that can do that. Like Van Jefferson is not going to be able to do that. Mike Williams can beat up some of your other cornerbacks. He's going to be more physical, just like the rest of the AFC North. He's going to fit in well with the division, and he's going to go up and get those balls, which is what Russell Wilson needs him to do. Yeah,
I think he adds a really interesting element to this offense that, under Arthur Smith, they're going to be who they are, but like it's helpful for George Pickens. And we had someone on our Patreon ask, is it so much of an upgrade over Van Jefferson? And I'm with you, Connor. I think it puts Van Jefferson where we need him. Calvin Austin, like what I like about the Steelers kind of in general is they've got some younger players, like a Jalen Warren, speed, Calvin Austin, speed, punt return touchdown, and a big deep bomb catch last week. And then you've got someone like at the tight end position, along with Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, who is about a foot taller than any other human in the stadium, and a dangerous player. Like you can kind of feel like this offense growing into what it wants to be, and adding a healthy Mike Williams gives them a component that they lacked before. So the Steelers are going for it, and I know last year I kept touting them as like they're going to win multiple, like 12 games, but it was a bit of a fugazi Steelers team. I don't feel that way with this one. I think they are what they are. They're not as dynamic as some teams, but the Steelers are, if you have to go play them in the playoffs, and if this Mike Williams thing works, like that is a rough road.
Mike Williams was a bust for the Jets, but it's more like
on the Jets.
Right.
The Jets being a bust of an organization right now in terms of how they handle their acquisitions and find a role for them. Before he went into the Aaron Rodgers doghouse earlier in the season, it was blink and you miss it, but he made some contested catches, which is a specialty downfield where he used his size in one-on-one matchups, and it's not hard to imagine him having success in a similar role with Pittsburgh. And yeah, if you are on the Jets side of things, like they fashion themselves still alive in this race, and I know Alan Lazard just went to IR and he's going to miss at least 3 more games. I'm a little confused why they didn't just stick with it, but I think if I had to guess, once they made the Adams move, it was kind of understood between player and team that we're going to get you out of here. So they make that move, and the Jets will just have to find guys like Malachi Corley or whomever else to step up and fill that void as the number 3 receiver. In other Steelers news, they also make a move. On their defense, they acquire edge rusher Preston Smith from the Packers for a 2025 7th-round pick. Mark Smith has never been a dynamo, but he was for several years a very consistent pass rusher for Green Bay. In fact, he had 8 or more sacks in each of the 21, 22, and 23 seasons. Hasn't been playing as much this year, but if there's a team that could find a way to turn a situational pass rusher into an impact player, I trust the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah,
because I wonder if that's a bit of the Jeff Hafley system in Green Bay. I'm just not sure. But I would say this, that finding decent pass rushing help at this point in the season is a challenge for lots of teams. It's probably one of the highest priorities at the trade deadline. And the Steelers go and do it, and it makes them better because they are an injury away from being thin at the edge position. So I think Preston Smith, who before this season was a pretty consistent producer for Green Bay and their leading sacker in 2020, or 2022, I believe it was, I like the ad. And again, it's just like these teams that like are buying and you trust the coaching staff, like it's a big win for the player as well.
With Green Bay too, this move is significant because they were the only team in the NFL to come into the post-roster cut down with an average roster age under 25. They were like 24.7 or something like that. Preston Smith was one of the oldest players on that defense. I think he was 31 after this trade. And if you're looking to buy on a team for a long term at this point, like Green Bay wants to invest in guys like Lucas Van Ness. They want to increase his reps, give him a higher volume, all that. And so they're getting this guy out of the way and really going all in on the youth movement there, which I think is really interesting because they are so young. It's crazy.
The Cowboys also add a wide receiver. They acquire Panthers wideout Jonathan Mingo and a 2025 7th-round pick in exchange for a 2025 4th-round pick. And this move was immediately met with a ton of derision online. The idea that Mingo could be seen as a bit of a draft bust, 2023 2nd-round pick of Carolina, who has not done much to give up a 4th-round pick, as Dallas did. Connor seems maybe a little rich, but at the same time, and I believe this is floated out of Gero World or the Star after this trade, this is a guy that they always valued around the draft, and they say they could turn Mingo into the player that he never became in Carolina.
Yeah, I would say what you will about the state of the Cowboys right now, but like Will McClay, like their personnel department has found really good players, and are consistently good at that. And Jerry Jones has been really good at resurrection projects too. I mean, guys that have had, blown out knees that he's drafted early in the draft and allowed them to rehabilitate, whatever you want to call it. A lot of different examples there. And I just generally, you brought up the Jahan Dotson trade, which has not paid dividends for the Eagles, but I am generally a fan of trying to discount the wide receiver market because the cost to entry is so high. Like it's $35 million now for a premium top flight wide receiver. You're not going to get those guys, and you have to have high draft capital. And Dallas, while they might be up there this year, needs so many other things that, hey, this is just a shot. It's a lottery ticket to try to get a quality player. And again, if you like them, then take a shot.
And isn't it just a byproduct of the time in the NFL calendar? Because we're parsing like what wide receivers went for in terms of a 5th-round pick or a 4th-round pick. I mean, in general, I don't really value a 5th or 4th-round pick if you can get a player that you can, if they liked him, before they were not able to select him. I do find it interesting from the Panthers angle because I get why you're sellers in theory, but you've given away Deontay Johnson. You've given away Jonathan Mingo, and it's like, wait a minute, you're a young team starting over. Like, why are you giving away all this talent? Like, what are you trying to build? And like, what message?
And not Adam Thielen.
You're right. Like, exactly. Like, it's just, and I know that they've struggled to send any message to their fan base that is hopeful at all, but it's like, so you're sellers, but you're also in a massive rebuild. Okay.
After two of Bryce Young's, unarguably the best game of his career last week, and then one of his better games the week before. But again, he is also like Jalen Coker's an undrafted free agent that they've had is getting heavily targeted. Like, I do think he's looking in other directions. They have not enough guys because this is a terrible roster, but I agree with you, Mark. I would have liked to have seen them invest more in Bryce at this point to try to see if he can get something going before the end of the season.
All right, let's wrap up this spin around the trade deadline with a little 8 o'clock delight, shall we? The Ravens, they fashioned themselves Super Bowl contenders, but they got to fix that back end of their defense. So they go and they get cornerback Tre'Davious White from the Rams. White was once upon a time a star with the Bills, had fallen out of favor with the Rams. Mark, now they have him in the building. Let's see if he can help.
Well, yeah, injuries really derailed his career, but I hope they can find something better of him. I think it's a bit of a, lottery pick. Let's go try.
All right. The Bengals are missing running back Zach Moss at least for till the end of the regular season with a neck injury. So they go and they make a depth move, Connor, adding Khalil Herbert, formerly of the Chicago Bears.
Love this. Herbert is a top 15 yards after first contact rusher, and he can catch the ball a little bit. Perfect complement for the Bengals in their backfield.
Yeah, Chase Brown will continue to see the rock a lot there as well. The 49ers, they're busy as well. They acquired defensive tackle Khalil Davis from the Texans for a 2026 7th-round pick. Also in the NFC West, the Cardinals acquire outside linebacker Baron Browning from the Broncos in exchange for a 2025 6th-round pick. Mark, the Cardinals being buyers, another hint that they see their development a little ahead of schedule.
I think they do. They kind of remind me of the Commanders in the sense that they're growing up quickly, and their defense made a major impact last weekend with a ton of pressure on the quarterback.
And finally, multiple reports around two of the top picks of the 2023 draft. Bryce Young, who's back in the starting lineup for the Panthers. No trade talks went anywhere with the Panthers, so Young obviously will stay there. The number 1 overall pick in the 23 draft. The number 4 overall pick, Anthony Richardson, also not going anywhere. The Colts, Connor, aren't even picking up the phone on those calls, or so we're told.
As they shouldn't. And with Carolina, I think the deal is this. If you're going to build around him, and if you're not, you have to at some point stop being David Tepper and, take some cues from some of the other owners around the league and just get that guy somewhere where he's going to actually enjoy his career.
Absolutely. That is 8 o'clock delight. All right, we're going to take a break. Still a lot to get to here. But just for our listeners overseas, I know our live stream, it did not come without consequence because everyone's favorite show over there in the UK and surrounding territory, Seymour and Harry on the BBC, that was preempted, Mark, by the live stream spectacular today.
I know, and I think, look, we're in a world now where there's so much content to digest or attempt to digest, and Seymour and Harry has been, I'd say it's one of those rare shows that's for the entire family. So it affected families, but I really give people credit for, dealing with this, going to treat our content the way it should be treated. And then Seymour and Harry comes back to you.
Does anyone know? Is it a real show?
Oh, it's a real show. Stay right here.
Oh, yeah.
And we got a treat for all you Seymour and Harry fans. We have the episode that you missed.
Yeah.
Stay right here. How's your fantasy football season going? Not quite how you expected. Ugh. Well, the good news is football is not the only sport on the calendar right now. The NBA season is in full swing too. And Underdog has tons of fun ways to get in on the action, even if your fantasy football season is going great. Maybe you want to carry that momentum over to another sport. That's how it works, by the way. You can draft a new team each night and compete against other users, where Underdog is giving away over $100,000 every night. Or build yourself an NBA pick'em entry with discounts and promos dropping all the time. You can even create pick'em entries that combine football and basketball plays. Doesn't matter that they're two different sports. So download the Underdog app, sign up with the code HTC, and receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash for our U.S. audience only.
Seymour and Harry is filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Seymour, did you take my pudding?
I did nothing of the sort, Harry.
I don't believe you, you cheeky bastard.
You've got proof? Any evidence? Come on now.
Yeah, mate. It's all over your face.
Oh, Harry, you cut to the core of me.
Great app of Seymour and Harry. We got it to you. Thank you to
Turning point
BBC
episode.
for lifting their rights embargo.
Sounds like you got into a argument with the dad from Bluey. But I Googled, because I was embarrassed. I thought this was like a pinnacle piece of British television, and I Googled it while I was during the break, and there was someone named Seymour Harry who died, and I was like, gee, what the fuck is this? So I was so confused. This was great. I loved it.
It is pinnacle programming, and yeah. I'm so happy. Again, thank you to BBC Two for allowing us to broadcast it in a one-time airing.
Well, it's bigger than I think they understand, the nature of, cross the pond cooperation in terms of programming. And that was an example of that.
I'm pretty sure that last line about you cut to the core of me, I think that's the catchphrase of the show. That when we finally get the merch going, I think that might be some merch that we have to get out there to the people.
Yes, no, that's used. That's sort of like what you're talking about, Willis, from the old school Different Strokes show. It's used at least once an episode. So
yeah. All right, let's turn our attention to the power rankings. The Heed the Call power rankings. The only power rankings that matters, the power rankings of record. And we've been doing it every week for the past month or so. And we've been keeping you up to date. You've seen it in the scroll underneath each episode. We'll, allude to it regularly on the Thursday show. But we haven't talked about it since the quarter poll of the season. Now at the midpoint of the year, it's time to check in and see where we are at. So without further ado, let's take a look at the latest HTC PRs. Starting with the first quadrant, we have number 8, the San Francisco 49ers. I think we're all buying in on them making a push here. Number 7, the Green Bay Packers, down 1 spot from last week. The Minnesota Vikings coming off a win. They are up 1 spot to 6. The Washington Commanders holding firm at number 5. The Buffalo Bills also hold at number 4. Actually down 1 spot because the Baltimore Ravens jump up to the number 3 spot this week. The Chiefs holding at number 2 despite, the undefeated record. I guess too many one-score games? I don't know. None of us had them as a number 1 team. And then number 1 for the second consecutive week, the Detroit Lions sweeping. All 4 of us have the Lions as the best team in football right now, and they're up 2 spots since week 6 when we last had this conversation. Connor, what do you think about that top 8? You got the Super Bowl winner in there? Is the Super Bowl in it? The 2 teams in the Super Bowl, is it here in this group?
I mean, I preseason, I had a Lions-Chiefs Super Bowl. I feel really good about it. My only point of contention here, it looks like I'm the only one that had the Chiefs at 3 and the Ravens at 2 because I feel like power rankings are a identifier of power in this moment right now, and I do feel like Baltimore's playing slightly better. They're playing a better schedule, and they have beaten teams that the Chiefs have beaten more significantly, and they beat the Buccaneers with a full complement of players. Now the Chiefs get the Broncos next week after Baltimore throttled them, so let's see what the score differential is there.
Yeah, I guess the only thing, and I'm not putting too much into it because I obviously like them a lot too. I have them at number 3 in my personal rankings. You got beat by the Raiders and the Browns. Like, that's something that's not going to happen to the Chiefs or Lions.
A Raiders team that was one Gardner Minshew drive away from beating the Chiefs as well.
But that's the difference, though. The Chiefs do find a way.
The Chiefs are a toenail, or an Isaiah Likely toenail, and a Gardner Minshew slippery hand away from being the Ravens.
You sound like me talking about the Patriots 10 years ago. The Chiefs are inevitable. Let's check out the second tier. Tier 2, quadrant 2, I call it. Let's start with 16. The Bengals down 2 spots from the last time we did a check-in week 6, but up 3 spots from last week. The Rams, I'm surprised they haven't moved up more. They hold steady from last week at 15. The Falcons fall 2 spots after a win. What's that about?
That's weird.
They are at 14. The Cardinals, they're in the twilight zone on our rankings, up 1 spot to the number 13 spot. The Chargers, they are at number 12. Wow, we're going to have a conversation, Sessler, because you and I are in a very different place on Jim Harbaugh's team. They come in at number 12. Number 11, the Houston Texans, down 2 spots from last week and down 5 spots since we last did this in week 6, trending downward. The Pittsburgh Steelers hold at number 11, and up 2 spots, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Steelers are 10, and it is the Eagles in the number 9 spot, up 2 spots, so they crack the top 10, and the Eagles are the biggest riser, or the second biggest riser in this group. They're up 7 spots since week 6. The Rams are up 10 spots since week 6. A 3-game winning streak will do that for you. But let's talk about the Chargers real quick here, Sessler. I had them at number 10. I'm buying in on this Chargers team. In fact, I had them as a playoff team, so I've never really been out on them, but they seem to be figuring things out with Herbert healthy, playing at a high level. Connor, you have them at 11. Justin, you have them at 12. But Mark, you have them at number 17. What do you have against this Chargers team?
Well, I don't know if it's that I have something against them because I also picked them to go to the AFC title game. this entire group.
Oh, Sassy.
What? No, but this
is
entire
like the best weekly staple of
Mark, why do you have them at 17? Why?
I think it's because of the rest of this group. If I had to look at the Chargers holistically, I believe that a healthy Rams team could beat them. I believe that the Bengals are too low in this to begin with. I think a good Falcons team could beat them, and I think they could lose to really any team on this list. So I have them a little lower than you guys. That's it. I think they're very solid. I'm not blown away by the height of their power. Like they're winning games.
Mark, you seem to have a Los Angeles bias thing going on here. I look at the Rams, and we're like, why did the Rams move? They're playing well. They're on a streak. I had them at 14 on my list. Connor 13. Justin 13. And then you have the Rams buried at 18, who you just literally said could beat the Chargers.
How about this? Like when I at our old workplace, when I'm trying to like drive my car into the parking garage, and there's 7,000 guards and 4,000 people and a bunch of jabronis running around in jerseys because they decided to put our workplace literally next to the stadium. So yes, I have bias against them, and I will judge them.
I need to see the top of this list again because I don't know if Mark has like real NFL teams in the top 10 anymore. Like
it is questionable.
Did you throw
not a good
Tottenham or like Manchester?
It's not great when I'm looking at my own rankings and wondering what's happening.
Okay.
But no, look I'm not that far off course from the rest of you on the.
Well, as we've talked about, Connor, we both are professional power rankers, and Mark's a novice. And instead of mocking him, I think we need to help guide him just to a level of basic competence. We're not there yet, but that's the goal. That's the goal. Let's check out the third quadrant.
That's big of you.
Just basic competence,
That is an absurd comment by kind of both of you, to be honest.
The Cowboys down 2 spots since last week, down to 24. By the way, Cowboys down 12 spots since we last did this in week 6. The Dolphins, we are in lockstep on the Dolphins, who just refuse to make a move on any level in their season, so they're docked at 23. The Jets coming off that, I was going to say an upset, but I still don't understand they were favored actually against the Texans. They're up 5 spots from last week to number 22 with their big showdown in Arizona coming up this weekend. The Colts hold at 21. The Seahawks hold at 20, but the Seahawks are down 7 spots since our last week 6 check-in. The Bears are going in the wrong direction. They are down 2 spots to 19. The Broncos hold at 18. And the Tampa Bay Bucks, even off a loss, they don't plummet. They almost beat the Chiefs. They're down 1 spot. They're at number 17. And here's the thing, Connor. Mark and I talked about it at length on Monday night, so we don't have to relitigate. But, Todd Bowles' failure to kind of seize that moment and seize the day there with a 2-point conversion try. Where are they on this list if they beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead last night? I mean, I feel like they'd probably be hovering around 13 or 14.
If they beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead without their top 3 wide receivers. I mean, and that was something that almost happened. I don't know if I'm necessarily I don't know if I'm necessarily banging Todd Bowles for this one, though, because one stat that I saw that blew my mind, 2-point conversion attempts are down in success like 25% this year. It was like 50% down to almost like 32% this year. And granted, the Giants are a big part of that because they're 0 for 6. And so they're going to drag down the totality of it. But I do think there's something to a lot of these defenses now, just the way that they're built. Sometimes the 2-point conversion play is just a little bit easier for them. Maybe a lot of these teams are repeating the same plays, whatever it might be. And that could have played into his reticence because I bet the analytics have changed on this a little bit with the failure rate, the way that it is this year.
Can't you see it, though? That's a great point, and it's fair to keep that in mind if teams are starting to get a little nervous about going for 2. But, can't you just see in that moment Baker, flushed out of the pocket, scrambling,
yes,
and then running through an arm tackle, and then barreling his way into the end zone?
Yeah,
but Baker, for all of his faults, the guy has a je ne sais quoi to him where the moment finds him, and many times he does seem to meet the moment, and that moment was right there. And I think that's
no team
what pisses
tackles
me off.
in space better than the Chiefs. That would have never happened. It would have been stopped for a loss of 5 yards.
Our argument, Connor, on Monday night was don't just give it back to Mahomes and the Chiefs because we've seen this so many times. Now they still would have gotten The other argument is, had you gone for 2 and even gotten it, they still would have had time to go try to kick the field goal. And they probably would have done that too. So it's just a frustrating situation.
I mean, you can't, what is it, the fallacy of the predetermined outcome. You can't, but they did actually then try to go down the field to win the game with the field goal, and that failed. We've already talked about this. All right, final quadrant. I'm surprised you don't believe in Baker there. You think he would have been stuffed. I think he would have, I don't know, he's just got something about him. Yeah, I don't know.
I love Baker Mayfield, but this Chiefs defense shut down like Christian McCaffrey in the Super Bowl. Like there's not any like rangy player that's going to outrun.
They weren't
this
having
team.
a great night. They were not having a great night on defense either. Maybe the tackling is sound, but in general, that wasn't like they were. All right. Finally, the Carolina Panthers.
Connor just says crazy stuff.
The Panthers remain docked in the 32 spot. They were in the 32 spot last week. They were in the 32 spot since week 6. So that's where we see the Panthers even coming off a win. That's rough. The Raiders, with all their drama, are down 1 spot to 31. The Saints firing coaches, trading cornerbacks, are down 2 spots to 30. The Pats hold at 29. Justin's Titans up 3 spots. Yummy. After their victory against the Pats. And, Brian Callahan, God bless you, buddy. They are at 28. The G-Men down a spot to 27. The Jaguars down a spot to 26. And the Brownies down a spot to 25. And that was before the Za'Darius Smith trade. But that sounds about right. This is the doomed Mark quadrant of the NFL right now.
There is a lot of junk occurring in this final 8 here. I like that something that I think is kind of Connor-ish is that he refuses to put the Panthers at 32. He puts them up at 30 and has the Saints buried down as the worst team in football. No hope if you're Mickey Loomis and friends.
We're talking about power in this point is like the Saints. You are in the middle of an absolute garbage free fall because not only do you have an interim head coach, but you have all these other veteran players on the roster. Like, why didn't I get off the island? Like Marshon Lattimore's gone. Why do I have to sit here and ruin the rest of my career for this season? And Derek Carr, who, who knows? I mean, is he going to be able to galvanize this team? I mean, it's literally like a pickup basketball team full of 34-year-old men. We
need that sitcom laugh track for will Derek Carr galvanize these men?
Come on, Harry.
Come on, Harry.
But
do you think Derek Carr's going to have a go in the locker room? Come on, Harry. Go ahead, Connor.
But I really just want to talk about the Raiders coaching staff, which is now my favorite thing.
Stop.
I'm too immature for sound drops. The Raiders coaching staff is now slowly becoming my favorite thing ever because Scott Turner is the offensive coordinator, and so they just hired Norv Turner, and then Marvin Lewis is there and Joe Philbin and like Tom Coughlin's helping out. And it's just like this fun board of Mad Libs of all the coaches that you heard of between 1994 and like 2002. It's just this Antonio Pierce is doing such a grand disservice to the interim head coach turned full-time head coach that
it's rough.
No team is ever going to hire an interim again because of the absolute think about it. He's like we talked about last week, benched quarterback 3 times. He's now on his 3rd different starting quarterback who he picked off of another team's roster, fired his entire offensive staff. Now Norv Turner's back. This is
I'm not
jackpot, baby.
I'm not being flip here. If you would have told me that Norv was no longer with us, I would have been like, oh, I kind of forgot that, and that's sad. But to the idea that Norv, who's next? Joe Gibbs? Who else are we going to bring out of mothballs?
Joe Philbin, yeah, I mean, they're there.
Is Joe
Rob
Gibbs
Ryan is on this coaching staff. This is awesome.
I'll take a look at the Joe Gibbs situation.
Joe's still with us, thank God. 83 years old.
Born in 1940. Whoa.
That guy. That guy predates the Pearl Harbor attack, folks. All right, let's before we say goodbye, let's spin out of power rankings and talk about Week 10. Holy shit, Week 10. That's kind of a benchmark when you get to the double-digit weeks. That happens fast. Mark, it was just yesterday that we were signing our underdog deals, and now we're about to begin a Week 10 preview.
Yeah, it always alarms me when you get to out of the single-digit weeks. So I'm with you. Like most of these things, I just feel what?
Are you a pull-string doll?
What do you mean?
Yes, it always alarms me when we get to the.
I am responding to your comment. I am experiencing enjoyment.
Yes, the time seems to move faster with each passing year, Dan.
Like, bye.
Week 10 begins with a humdinger. The Cincinnati Bengals, who are looking to, again, I mean, this is like Groundhog Day. They are, after a slow start to the season, they have started to turn it on. They have won 3 of 4. Of course, it was the Raiders that they blew out last week, and it was the Deshaun Watson Browns in their previous victory, and the Daniel Jones Giants, the victory before that, with a mollywop at the hands of the Eagles as the meat in that sandwich. So in a lot of ways, just speaking out loud here, boys, the Bengals haven't shown us shit yet. Here's their chance to show us that they actually are a team to be taken seriously in the AFC, to take on the mighty Ravens. And Connor, I love this game. I've said it for a couple of years now. Joe Burrow is my favorite player in the league. I just love watching the guy play. I love what he's made of. I love his connection to Cincinnati. It makes me think of Wes and the working class people having this guy that get behind a local kid made good. It's all good. It's all good with Burrow, right? And he's having a fantastic season. I love him going into Baltimore in prime time. I don't know if they're going to win, but I'd be very surprised if they get blown out because it feels like this is the season in a lot of ways.
I think this game will be close, but the numbers here still concern me very much in that even over this run where the Bengals have played the row of tomato cans that you just outlined, they are still 16th against the run in that 4-week stretch. And Baltimore is just so far and away in that same stretch the best rushing team in the NFL, the most efficient offense in the NFL, period. And I think we can dream up a lot of scenarios where Joe Burrow has the ball and maybe they're down 8 and he's going to try to come back and tie it at the end of this one. But nobody is able to push around Baltimore right now up front. It's crazy.
I mean, we're not that far removed from the Bengals losing a contest in which they scored 38 points on the Ravens. They lost in overtime 41-38. In that game, Jamar Chase had 193 yards and 2 touchdowns and 10 catches. The quarterbacks combined for 750 yards and 9 touchdowns. So to me, a blowout doesn't feel correct. It's possible that there's a script for a game like that to occur again. That's what I'd see more. I get why Burrow's your favorite player. There's one thing I'd say about him, because we are getting year after year these weird stuff's happened to the Bengals post-Super Bowl. Like last year was a disaster. Burrow's been through a lot. You get the slow starts, but Joe Burrow, the person, has been the same guy through it all. There's just this beeline of his sort of persona and fearless charisma and willingness to fight. I think last week I looked at the team like the Dolphins, like this was your season. You need to go beat Buffalo for me to believe in you. The Bengals need to go get this game, and I think they can do it. They are missing, I think, the T. Higgins thing. If T. Higgins, who did not practice on Monday, they're built around star wide receiver play and their quarterbacks. So if you don't have T. Higgins, you're a different injury. You're an injury away from, I think, a victory. They got it done against the Raiders with a lot of guys who were second and third string people. You need T. Higgins against the Ravens. I don't know if you're going to get him.
Yeah, Higgins really makes that offense go. I know they won their most recent game without him, but they've been kind of lost without him in the other weeks. And, just to put this into perspective statistically, Baltimore's struggles on defense. I mean, last year, one of the most well-balanced NFL teams ever not to make the Super Bowl, the Ravens. They had the MVP at quarterback. And on defense with Mike McDaniel, they ranked first in points allowed, sacks, and takeaways. They were the first team in NFL history to win the Triple Crown like that. And this year, they have, under defensive coordinator Zach Orr, and maybe a little shot against the Orr community, Connor, just not for nothing, but through 9 games, Baltimore ranks 21st in yards allowed, 23rd in points allowed, last in pass defense, and this via ESPN. The Ravens have allowed 26 completions of 25 or more yards, which is also the worst in the NFL. That's all from Jamison Hensley of ESPN. It's a real thing, and Tre'Davious White's walking through that door. Obviously, he's not going to probably step in the door and be, first of all, the old Tre'Davious White, and also even have an impact on this game on a short week. So it's a problem. And if this team is the only, this is the Steinbrenner doctrine come to life. The old anything short of a world championship is failure. That's where the Ravens are at. If they get got, it's because this defense isn't good enough this year.
Yeah, I just keep my cousin's name out of your mouth. That's all I'm saying. He's a perfectly fine defensive coordinator. But no, you're right. I mean, in all seriousness, I do think that there is something to what the Mike McDonald defense did so well last year was it had success early, and then it continued to evolve on itself. And I've heard people describe it as almost like a disease, the way that it evolves and strengthens itself. And so like a virus almost, right? And so the Ravens have kind of missed the opportunity to get the snowball rolling on that. They're still trying to find a different identity, a newer identity right now in order to build on themselves defensively.
I do they talk about like the first time play caller on offense, that your mind is swimming, that you're underwater, that people can't even understand how tough that is to just pick up out of the gate. I don't know if it's the same for defense, but there is a tangible change. They are healthier in the secondary than they were a couple weeks ago when they got flamed by Cleveland. I think that's a good sign. I want to see what Deontay Johnson does for them as well. I mean, these are teams that traded for people, and let's see how quickly they become part of this. I think if you're the Bengals, you need to get your new running back involved soon.
And I believe he will be. All right, let's see. What's this Jermaine Burton situation that's going on?
He miss practice on? I think he. So I remember I really liked him watching his tape coming into the NFL. I think he's a very good athlete. I think what happened was there was a lot of concern about.
Pull up that tweet, by the way, Justin. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, there was a lot of concern, I think, character-wise about him in general. Like, is this a driven person? And so he missed Saturday's practice. When they were planning to have him be a large part of the game plan against the Raiders, and he somehow missed Saturday's practice, and there was some vague tension between him and Burrow on the sideline during the game.
And then Justin just sent us a video of him arriving at the game in pajamas, and then I don't know, I saw another tweet that was he seen at a casino or something?
Yeah.
So something's going on right now.
And he's playing like he's still like he's getting another chance, and I feel like the boomer just like crawling out of me like the beast and Alien. Like, now I'm not going to give anyone a chance anymore since I've had a life full of third and fourth chances. So but like we have now like him playing this weekend. Like Tyreek Stevenson sat like 2 drives after he literally didn't pay attention to a play, and I'm like, come on, let's go back to people getting in a little bit of trouble here, I don't know. Like
give
a
him
game.
The strap.
Yeah.
Oh, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, we'll see what kind of role Burton has this week or doesn't have. But anyway, great game, great way to kick off Week 10, and I think that about does it. That about does it. Yeah, that's just, I would say it's important as we wrap things up to, why is the trade deadline on Election Day? These are the questions that, again, Connor is someone that graduated from Syracuse, an esteemed organization and university, obviously, in terms of creating journalists and practicing a code. And I think curiosity is an important part of it, isn't it?
It is, or you could argue that we are created as part of the deep state establishment. And so me trying to redirect you right now to ending the show is really my way of protecting the NFL and the government as they, travel down this conspiratorial
Are we
road.
wagging the dog? Is that
I
what we're doing?
think we are. That is being wagged. That animal.
I'm texting all you guys right now. Be careful.
All right, good stuff. We'll be back. By the way, if you missed, correct me if I'm wrong, Justin. If you missed the live stream and you're a Patreon member, you could still watch the live stream after the fact. So patreon.com/heedthecall. We're going to do a lot of those live streams in the future. So again,
sign
get on
up.
board. Sign up for it. You have Throwback Podcast. You have Rolling Thunder. You have another Cessdog, I See in Red newsletter, which is
Dream in Red,
very...
yeah.
I Dream in Red, a very right-leaning publication.
No, it is not. It is not. And it includes an incredible page dedicated to from Conor Orr, something that he wrote that is trench. It is not right-leaning.
Conor offers the counterpoint. His column's called I Dream in Blue. So that's good.
Well,
Mark, just fanatical with some of your political takes in I Dream of Red.
I don't allow a political party to own a color. How about that?
And these colors don't run. Till next time, heed the call.